It needs to stay weird.
They're weird and proud, and we love it. Okay, so I feel like the battleground for the next elections are moving into the schoolroom, universities, but especially schools, grammar schools, high schools. A professor named Peter Boghossian became just the latest teacher and professor to resign this week because of what's going on in the schools. And I've been talking about this for a couple of years, and it's interesting. At first, people were going, "What are you talking about?" They, if you didn't have kids, or a lot of times kids come home from school and they don't tell their parents what they're being told in school. People didn't know. Now I think it's becoming much more of an issue. And who votes? Parents vote. Young people, they got parties to go to, and you're single, you don't have a mortgage. Parents vote. And this guy, he says about his university, he had to resign. It has transformed a bastion of free inquiry into a social justice factory whose only inputs are race, gender, and victimhood, and whose only outputs are grievance and division. I want to read a few other teachers, so you know that this is everywhere. This is a teacher in Connecticut, Jennifer Tafudo, resigned. I decided to resign from what I thought was my forever career because I felt more like a political activist than a teacher in my own classroom. What's going on in classrooms across our country is pitting students against each other based on the color of their skin. In Virginia, Laura Morris says, I was told in one of my so-called equity trainings that white Christian able-bodied females currently have the power in our schools, and that has to change. She then says a dissenting opinion is not allowed even to be spoken in my personal life. In Louisiana, Jonathan Copel says, they're telling our black children that they are oppressed by white people so they don't have a chance. We want to teach education, not left-wing ideas that aren't backed up by facts or science. You've written about this recently. I think it's on a lot of people's minds now. What do you think is going to be the repercussions for the next election from this issue?
Well, Orwellian is an overused adjective, but here it applies. In 1984, Orwell said, watch the language because it becomes turned inside out. In 1984, love meant hate, war meant peace, and on campus today, diversity means enforced conformity. Because we have, through the magic of modern parenting, and isn't it interesting that parent became a verb right before this began to happen? Modern parenting.
People never said parent as a verb before?
It was very recent.
Yeah, I don't remember that as it. I remember it being.
Now we are skillful at parenting, and this produces a kind of perfectionist parenting, that if you're really skillful at it, no one who's had children believes this, but people who don't, if you're really good at parenting, you'll produce the perfect child to which you are entitled.
Right.
The problem is, of course, that what is happening on campus is they're giving up on the essential ingredient of democracy, which is a culture of persuasion. They've given up on the idea of persuasion, and they're going to mandate. We don't just mandate eviction moratoria, and we don't just mandate vaccinations. We now mandate harmony on campus because we've raised children to be so risk averse and to be so convinced that they are awesome. They all got participation trophies for showing up at soccer practice. And they arrive at campus and they want to have a safe space to be safe from challenging ideas that might make them sad. You know that at Brandeis University, the phrase trigger warning now requires a trigger warning? Because warning suggests there's a danger, and trigger, well, you know what that makes people think of.
They put the National Archives put a trigger warning now on the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence.
They have said that our documents might be harmful or difficult to review.
This is always my thing with the Democrats. If what you're doing sounds like a headline in The Onion, no, really.
Yeah.
The National Archives puts trigger warning on the Declaration of Independence. I would say qualifies. I've read many and before. Seattle voted whether or not to decriminalize crime.
The kind of people who do this came within an eyelash of re-electing Donald Trump with 3 words: defund the police. And if you think that that's the craziest thing the progressives can come up with, you don't understand Will's law, which is there's no such thing as rock bottom.
These two different issues. So, I've only been in academia now for 3 years. So this is not like a classic academic. I came up as a journalist. But I will say that diversity of thought is extremely important, at least the university that I work at, USC. We purposefully, I teach political reporting. We have a very generous alum who wants to help us expose students to the real world of politics. So we take them on trips to Washington, D.C., where they meet Republicans, they meet Democrats. I took a group of students to the Iowa caucuses,